Include Now. Brought to you by Even Break.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Include Now After Pod, or as we like to call it here, Community Corner. Because I am thrilled to say that I am joined today by Poppy and Adam, and uh, and as usual, I will be asking Poppy some things that our community would like to know. Thank you very much for joining me today, because I really enjoyed listening to conversation with Adam, as I was just saying off camera, but I took psychology at university, so talking on mental health is a topic that's close to heart, and I certainly think it's a topic that people need to continue to talk on, because I wanted to say thank you too, but because of the work that you've done previously, because I've now got the privilege of growing up, and living in the generation that is able to talk on mental health too. So I just wanted to say a massive thank you as well.
Thanks, Josh, and that's very kind of you to say so. But I want to thank you and your generation for studying psychology and leaning into this subject, but also being up for each generation does its thing, doesn't it? And I guess over the last 15, 20 years in the UK, there's a whole load of us that really pushed mental health to normalize it, but it's still important that you guys, the next generation, the next generation, stepped into that space, and that still requires courage. So I'm chuffed to bits that people like you have gone, this is important, and we're gonna take up space where space has been created for us, and honouring that. I think it's fantastic. So thank you.
No, because there's certainly a lot more to come, but for where it is currently, the UK's also come a long way too. So jumping into what the community would like to know, they wanted to know, how can I tell the difference between an organisation that is going to support my mental health and one that just says that it will.
Yeah. So how you can, I mean, there's lots of different ways of identifying it, and identifying an organisation that is going to be good for your mental health, but no one organisation is going to be perfect, and quite a lot of, there's WHO, World Health Organization, has collected research that now has proven that a good working environment, a healthy working environment, is more conducive, allows one individual to recover more than psychiatric services. Like all three of us are like, yeah, well, of course, right? But that is data and evidence based. Now, if you create the right working environment, it is good for people's healing and it is good for people's mental health more than clinical services. And I think knowing that should be a really should create an imperative for any workplace to do better in this, right? Because our kids and our nieces and our nephews and our friends and our, the next generation are coming into the workforce, and why wouldn't we want to leave a workforce or a working environment that is better, more inclusive, and not all about bottom line. But the things that you can do to identify without, and it's not perfect, is Indeed and Glassdoor are two websites where you can leave anonymous feedback for organizations. And that is being used increasingly by your generation to actually go and review companies and say how they felt, particularly at exit. We're doing a big piece of work with World Wellbeing Movement, which is based at Oxford University, where they've collected all the data from Indeed and Glassdoor and actually looking at how much mental health shows up as a reason for leaving. Like, what are the reasons that show up? So I would say that's probably a very a point. I would look at an organization's diversity and inclusion policy and ask exact questions around what does the well-being support look like, how often do people use that well-being support, how is the company in the annual report. For most businesses, these are big organizations, they will have published data on staff survey, so there's a lot of publicly available information that you can get. But I also think it's really important, if you are going to go and work for an employer, you don't see your interview as you being interviewed. An interview is a meeting, and it's a meeting to check if this relationship is going to work. I come from a culture where arranged marriages are a thing, right? So like there's a hell of a lot of meetings to happen to see if there's the right connection, if the rapport is there, if the status is there. Like, and I'm not endorsing arranged marriages at all, by the way, but the systems that sit around it is the ones that we can apply to see if it's a good match. Because you're going to be going into this workplace, if you're full-time, that's a significant part of your waking hours.
Yeah, of course.
So that's a great question from your community, but I would say start with their website, look at their D&I policy, and when you and then dig a bit deeper and send an email and ask direct questions. If you feel worried about doing that ahead of the interview, I would say go into the interview with your questions. 65%, I've seen a data somewhere where this was in India, I think, 65% of people applying for jobs in the private sector in India said that diversity and inclusion, and particularly LGBTQ inclusion and mental health and well-being, were the two questions that, and planetary health was the third. So those were the three questions that were being asked by young people before they entered. So your company, you should just be brave and ask those questions. If it doesn't align, then make a decision on whether you want to spend a bit of time in this organization, see how it feels, or whether it's a long-term opportunity. But
no, because I certainly feel like for my generation, I think we're like more comfortable moving jobs too. So like for previous generations that might have worked at the same company for quite some time, just like for whatever reason, because I think like companies really need to pay attention to mental health, and creating a workplace that people are comfortable turning up to, because obviously people are at work quite a
Yeah.
lot of the time.
Yeah.
So it is like certainly for my generation, where if a company's no longer meeting what we want, well then we're more than happy to look elsewhere as well.
Yeah, and I think the research shows that your generation will have like 5 careers.
Yeah.
So life is long, and you've got
Yes.
you've got a lot of worlds and to experience.
Mhm.
So, if you want to retain talent in a business, I mean, there's sort of 3 factors in my mind. One is setting the tone from the top.
Mm-hmm.
So leaders, when we talked about this on the podcast, which hopefully people will listen to, but setting the tone from the top and leadership voice is crucial. Line management and investment, the 2 most researched interventions that work in the workplace to support people is line managers being trained and peer support.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be no surprise to you as well with the work that you've done for years, Adam. But peer support, seeing yourself in others or a version of yourself, or the limitations that we talked about just before we recorded, is seeing that in others and then asking others how you get over that is more. You learn more from that than any books or medical intervention. So line manager support, peer support. So invest in people, set the tone from the top, invest in your people to make them really knowledgeable and skilled at managing people and supporting each other, and make your commitment visible. So make your commitment visible, and whether that's all of diversity, inclusion, mental health and well-being, like how do you do that? Most employers have, they're aware of their brand, they were aware of marketing their brand, make sure that that has got integrated in it, very clear messages that we're inclusive and creating positive mental health. And
nice,
I mean, what do you look for when you're looking for work?
Oh,
This is where he's going to tell you that. My next job.
Like, because I would just like to say that I'm not looking to change jobs. Okay. Bloody hell! Like I'm like.
Right. So he's definitely not leaving. But if you were looking, what would you be looking for?
So, kind of the 3 topics that you said that comes from that piece of research too, where yes, of course, you're looking at the company, what kind of the role is, what the career progression opportunities are, like also what they're paying.
Yeah, obviously.
Of course.
Got bills,
But then kind of past those kind of topics, you're looking at how they can support you as a person, because even though you turn up to work, that's not to say that the rest of your life isn't happening too. So like, what kind of support can that company offer you? What kind of what kind of social responsibility things are they also like supporting too. So yeah.
And you've just reminded me of something, like most companies that are doing really well at this are also like looking at, like they look at 5 ways to well-being, which is an evidence-based model of how we can look after ourselves. And the 5 ways, now I'm going to test myself, is moving. So some kind of, it's not running marathons, it's actually just being physically active, learning new things that isn't sat around the computer, ideally learning with your hand and getting away from the laptop in traditional settings like in the UK. Giving is also known as helpers high. So when I teach you a skill or give you a bit of my time, it actually has a physiological positive impact on me. So we both go away feeling good. And it forms connection and bond, which also then means that we build community, which is good for society. Noticing, so this for some people translates to meditation, but for me it's about putting my laptop and my phone down and having a conversation without any distraction, like being present in the moment, or maybe just going for a run and really tuning into the fact that I live by the sea and it's beautiful, and being grateful and acknowledging the life that I've got. And then the last one is, right, what was it? Giving, noticing, learning. What's the last one? I've forgotten now.
I can't remember.
No,
There we go. Anyway, can't remember. But I guess in a work environment, a good job is one that doesn't create space in your day that you can do one well-being thing a day. Like, can you go lunchtime and do a walk, for example? And how do we foster that behavior in individuals by leading from the top? So if I never go off and do anything well-being-y, or don't tell my team that I'm trying to run or I'm learning something outside of my work, I'm not modelling. What I'm modelling is you've got to sit at your laptop, which is what I used to do.
Hours on end sort of thing. I get you.
So that's a shift. And I'd say those are the questions that you want to be asking the person that's interviewing you. How do you look after your mental health? How do you line manage people? How, because what they're modelling is, and you'll be able to tell if they're telling you the truth or not.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
So,
No, but I can, because kind of touching on earlier what you said in terms of peer support, like the community would also like to know, how can I gain confidence in sharing my mental health journey with my colleagues?
So how can I feel comfortable, did you say?
Yeah, so like, how can a person sort of have the confidence to like openly talk to their colleagues?
Yeah. So I think disclosure, I mean, that's probably some legal word, isn't it? Disclosure, but sharing our lived experience is such a courageous and a vulnerable thing to do. And I always say to people, first of all, I think you need to be clear about why you're sharing. Is it because you want to provide peer support? Is it because you need something? And actually, without sharing, you're going to be living this double life at work, and that's not great for anybody long term. So what is the reason that you are sharing? And then from that, you can build out who you share with and what you share. The other thing to be mindful about sharing our lived experience around mental health is that it can often unlock a whole load of people then also sharing, and you becoming the poster person in an organization, right? And so you then receive all of these amazing emails, or as you're walking down the office, which very few of us do these days because we're all working from home, people congratulating you, which is lovely, which is a really warming and nice feeling. It's validating. but then people will also offload onto you, and actually
there's a weight to that, isn't there? There's a mental health load that comes with that back at you, because everyone thinks you're a person to go to offload, which in many ways is great, but you have to look after yourself as well.
Yeah, and the way I've seen that done well in medium and large organisations, which is where most of my experience lies, is like we run something called the This Is Me campaign, which was people from in all loads of different companies all over the UK doing 3-minute videos, maybe shorter 90-second videos on something like I'm Poppy Jaman and I love to run and I love food and I'm Bangladeshi and I also have had depression for 20-something years, and so it's not This Is Me is more about this is who I am and this is part of my life. That campaign has been one of the most successful workplace campaigns to galvanize that momentum behind sharing and normalizing mental health conversations. But what we learnt on that journey of the This Is Me was that in the early days, individuals were then at risk of being burnt out because they became the face of mental health. So what companies then very quickly did, to your point, Adam, was they then trained up mental health champions, and sometimes they were mental health first aiders, whatever it was, mental health champions who were then gone, okay, this person, you're now going to do a This Is Me video. Before and after, we're going to give you support so that you can tell your story in the way that you want to tell it, and not just, and where are your red lines? And also after support, because that emotion, the release of actually, for some people, it was the first time they ever shared this after suffering or experiencing living with 30 years of whatever it might have been. And then it was, if people are coming to you, here's the link, send them to the mental health champions in the organisation. So I think all of those things are really important. But I also think if you don't want to do the big bang, big reveal, and actually what you need is adjustments. I'm on medication, I can't get up before 8 o'clock in the morning, even if I go to bed at 9 o'clock the night before. When I get up, it takes me 40 minutes to get out of bed. So I also have an autoimmune condition called lupus, Josh. So in the winter days, and if I'm having a flare, it will take me about 30 minutes to get out of bed, just because all the joints are stiff. And it doesn't really mean anything to me anymore because I've lived with it for 13 years, but I prepare for winter in a different way, and I have an electric blanket which my husband hates, but like it warms me before I get out of bed. Like loads of little tricks, which is why peer support is important, because we can tell each other this stuff. But that also then means that doing a call with Singapore time zone, which is like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning to reach my colleagues there, is not conducive to my mental health or my physical health when I'm having a flare. So I actually feel like, for me, I then need to be quite open with colleagues in Singapore to say,
it's not,
this week it's not going to happen. Like, can we just roll it forward to, and to get to a place where I don't have to explain myself, where I can just text my wonderful colleague at Weng Hong in Singapore and just go, I can't do today's call. And it's, so for me, the purpose of sharing those kind of my health issues is so that I don't have to come out every time.
Okay.
Like, he just gets it, he knows that I'll deliver, or we'll chat next time, or he'll make an adjustment and he'll speak in the evening where I'm a bit more. So I think being really clear about what it is that you're after in sharing your story is really important. And I would definitely say, before you share your lived experience, just have a chat to a couple of mates and a couple of peers that might have gone through, or organisations like yourself are really important sounding boards to just work out what you want from it. Because the other thing is, discrimination still exists, right? So you walking into an interview and you doing an interview, you are going to be judged on how, and people are going to be thinking, well, what adjustments am I going to have to make for Josh? Is he going to be able to present if the job involves a lot of presentation? all of those questions, discrimination exists. So if you are going to share, you have to be mindful that you may well get discriminated against, because that's the reality. And I would love to say that the world is a perfect place and we should all be open about all of our identity. But at this stage in my career, you're not as old as me, but at this stage in our careers, you said earlier, I don't give a shit anymore. But I think like, but we can do that, right? Because we're here. These guys have still got a career ahead of them, and you can't, you know, you have to be thoughtful about where,
of course.
where you come. Do you want to add to that?
No, I think you're bang on. I think, and that is why even they are doing what they're doing with corporates and organisations, because we need to break down that judgment and unlearn or the behaviour that society has got to create these spaces where we can bring the best out of every candidate. And I think you're right, and we talk with our candidates, and a lot of them ask, when should I share my needs, my diversity, and that's sadly not a simple question, because there is discrimination out there. I think it is changing, and I think the more work that we're doing to change that narrative will hopefully create more inclusive employers. And what I'm hoping is that, as you touched on earlier, Josh, with your generation, I don't think it is about just what am I going to get paid anymore. It's what values does that company have? Do they match my values?
Yeah.
What support does that company provide in terms of wellbeing? And I think, and I hope, and I think we need to demand that going forward, part of that, what does this company do for me, involves more wellbeing support and more normalised conversation around adjustments. And that's when we can break down those barriers.
Yeah, no, certainly, and thank you for your answers too. Like, I'm just quickly moving on to the last one, but so it is, what do you make of the trivialization of mental health conditions? So like, for example, someone might have a really tough week at work, and that is completely like okay too, but then like, rather than just saying what it is, they might then say that like they're now really depressed, rather than just saying that like they've had a crappy time, sort of thing.
Yeah, so this is, if any of the kids listen to this, which I'm sure they will, because I'll be sending it to them, but there's a standard family joke like that, I'm the mental health police, right? So so words like, oh, that's crazy and that's madness. And so in the family, like big family events like Christmas and stuff, usually there's an in-joke going on with where we've had friends come round and they're going, oh, this Christmas is mad. And they're like, oh, she's got... They look at my face and they're like... Right, so we've got this thing, and 90% of the time I will go, it's not really mad, is it? It's exciting. And I've learned over the years to just intervene in a very gentle way and reframe what that person's saying. Or I will go, like, seriously, you're feeling depressed? And then people realise that that's not what they mean. Because I think language is really important, and I am nowhere near getting language right with all of this stuff. I am on a constant learning journey. Constant learning journey. And I mean, even yesterday I referred to a colleague's partner as girlfriend, and they corrected me, and we didn't need to have a, oh God, I'm so sorry. I just went, oh right, because they were a non-binary person. They identify as non-binary, and I think it takes a bit of time to get to that level of comfort where you're being corrected and you just nod and you move forward rather than making a big deal out of it. And sometimes an apology is completely required, but I think it's language is really important, and depression is very different to having a bad day. Being a psycho is not the same as having a really wild party. Like, do you I just find all of that very difficult, because all the time in our families and in our social settings, we're not picking up on language that is misogynist, that is racist, that is disableist, that whatever it is. All the time we're not picking up on it because it's just a joke, and it's just, we're enabling it. And what's the point of doing the work that I do if in social settings I'm not going to follow through with my values, which is such a bore for most of my people, but I'm just like, I don't really care. It's like it's somebody's got, because for every time I've corrected language, there was probably 2 people in that room that wanted to.
Yes, of course,
Yeah, so there, 10 people might be like, oh, here she goes again, and then 2 people will be like, thank God she said that. And actually it models how you can do it. And in my younger days, I would have been much more angry and like, these days I've learnt the art of just gently, because most people don't mean it.
Of course.
It's that recognition. Like, I used to be like, oh, everybody needs to do better, and then I made a load of mistakes, and then I was like, all right, this is
normal.
It's that. So I think it's really important not to trivialize any health issue, and being mindful of our language is really important, because inadvertently we can show up as being discriminatory or putting someone down who's already having a shit time in life, because the world from the day that they were born was set up not for them to flourish. So if there's tiny things that we can do by trying to get the language right, then that's no big deal, right?
It's true.
So yeah, that's what I think. Don't trivialize it, and also learn. The other thing about that as well, Josh, is that emotional language in the British English culture isn't a thing. Like, we either go, this is me being sarcastic to a certain extent, but we've got like 4 or 5 words. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm joyous, but there's like a million words in that. And I guess I feel quite lucky because I speak Bengali as well, and a little bit of Hindi, and for sadness there's like 20 words that I could describe sadnesses. So I think there's a fast track to I'm depressed. Well, you're not really. You're feeling really sad because this happens. And I think sometimes just asking those questions allows people to develop their emotional language and forget the current older us lot. I think it's the next generation. So when you're godparents or nieces and nephews, and teaching them emotional language and buying books that helps them express what they're feeling means that we change people using. So that's what I would say that we should all do, is focus on the next generation and buy 3-year-olds books on how to actually talk about their emotions and how they're feeling.
Nice. Because thank you for an absolutely wonderful answer. Because we've now reached a point where you get to ask myself and Adam something too.
Okay, well, there's a million things that I'd like to ask you to, but let me start with I'm sort of learning quite a lot about intergenerational trauma and how we pass that down, and I guess particularly having kids myself, like reflecting on how my depression at periods of my life might have impacted them and their personality, and what can I do to remedy some of that. So I guess my question to you is how can you, what are you doing to be a healthy ancestor? That's, I want you to think like 2 generations on. What are you doing to be a healthy ancestor?
Okay.
I think you're learning a very job.
Well, so like, I would kind of say in terms of the routine that that I've created for myself, but like also the way that I present myself to. So like in terms of I'm always like open to like more serious conversations where like people just need someone to listen to, but like even when I'm talking to my friends and my family, because I'm really open, that like I also keep a journal where it helps me recognize sabotaging patterns that for one reason or another that I've unconsciously created growing up, and it's the work that I'm putting in currently, and the work that I will continuously put in, that hopefully for my children and grandchildren, that they can grow up knowing that it's okay to talk as well.
Love it.
So yeah,
Thank you.
it's okay.
I think mine's related to that, which I don't know what a balance is yet, but I think there's a balance between not passing on your own trauma, but also being open about how you're feeling to a younger generation and the older generations actually, and getting a balance of it, not transferring, but also showing that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to feel sad, and in there you can articulate it in 21 different ways. And I think for me it's getting a balance. And I don't know what a balance is yet, and I think as a parent I'm learning every day. I'm not getting it right every day. I think having a balance of showing emotion, showing it okay to have these feelings, but also showing strategies, I guess, and how we can deal and get support.
Modelling. Amazing. Thank
Yeah.
you both.
Thank you.
No, because thank you for coming on, because I've really enjoyed this conversation too. And if you've enjoyed this episode of Community Corner, please share it amongst your own community, and if you would like to find out more, please check out the best practice portal. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.